All right, welcome back. We are going to get started on page 100 and 101. And over the last several lessons, we have talked about and outlined several different properties for quadrilaterals. And today I've got a sheet here that will kind of organize all of these properties on one page for you because there are quite a few of them. So I will make sure that you have access to this printout right here so that you can use it and kind of take note of what property or what shape has what properties. Okay, so up here we have parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, square, kite, trapezoid, and isosceles trapezoid. And going down this column, we have all the different properties that we have talked about. Okay, so if we are in class, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to go through and kind of research or figure some of these out. But for example, parallelogram, the opposite sides are congruent. So we can just get a marker or a pencil here, and we can go down to the one that says opposite sides are congruent. Okay, so right here, both pairs of opposite sides congruent. So we can just color that in or put it. It might be easier to just read through them all. So exactly one pair of opposite sides congruent. No, that's not true because both of them. All sides congruent. No. Both pairs of consecutive sides are congruent. No. Exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. No, we have both sides. Both pairs of opposite sides parallel. And if you want, you can be doing multiple at the same time. So I know like in a rectangle, both opposite sides are the same and both pairs of opposite sides are also parallel. So I know that several properties will be combined in some of them. Let me get some colored markers. Blue. There you go. Okay, and what I did, it was just I used the rainbow across here and did these properties this way. So I know with a rhombus, well, let's just do all the parallelogram ones real quick, okay? So exactly one pair of opposite angles congruent. No, both pairs. So both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. Yes. All angles congruent. No. Both pairs of base angles congruent. No. Consecutive angles are supplementary. Yeah. That's add to 180. We have that right here on number 3. Diagonals are perpendicular. No, it actually says the diagonals bisect each other is what we're looking for. Diagonals are congruent. No, diagonals bisect each other. Diagonals bisect each vertex. No. Exactly 2 consecutive sides are supplementary. No. That should be angles actually. Okay, that should read angles there. Exactly 1 diagonal bisected. No. Okay, so that is all for the parallelogram. Then we can go to rectangle, and rectangle shares all of those properties. Okay, because it is a parallelogram. But if we switch over to the rectangle, it says the diagonals are congruent. Okay, so here diagonals are congruent. That is one. And we know that all four angles are 90 degrees. So also all angles are congruent. Okay, and that's all for the rectangle. Okay. Next we have the rhombus, which I did in yellow. Okay, a rhombus has all the properties of a parallelogram. Be careful here not to do the rectangle ones. Okay, so it has all of those properties, but then it also, the diagonals are perpendicular. It says here that we took notes on. So right here, diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, diagonals bisect each vertex angle. Okay, that was number 2 right here. It bisects those vertex angles. So that was right here. Okay, looking at some other properties. The main one is that all sides of a rhombus are congruent. Okay, and I think if you read through there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there should be 8. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so that's all of them. Okay, then we went to a square, and a square is both a rectangle and a rhombus. Okay, so if it's a property of one of those, it's a property of a square. So exactly one pair of opposite sides congruent? No. Both pairs of opposite sides congruent? All sides are congruent. Both pairs of consecutive sides are congruent. Exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. Both pairs of opposite sides parallel. Exactly one pair of opposite angles congruent? No. Both pairs of opposite angles congruent. All angles are congruent. Base angles are congruent? No. Consecutive angles are supplementary? Yeah. Diagonals are perpendicular? Yes. Diagonals are congruent? Yes. Diagonals bisect each other? Yes. Diagonals bisect each vertex angle? Yes. Okay, so the square had many, many of those. Okay. Now for a kite, okay, if we flip to the kite page here, okay, a kite is a quadrilateral with 2 sets of congruent consecutive sides. So if we look here, both pairs of consecutive sides congruent. That's a kite. Okay. And then it also, if its diagonals are perpendicular, so we had diagonals perpendicular, that's a kite. Could be a kite. Exactly one diagonal is bisected. That's a kite. Okay, we talked about that before here. This one of those diagonals is bisected. And there's one more. Exactly one pair of opposite angles are congruent. So right here, opposite angles, one pair of those angles is congruent. So 1, 2, 3, 4 properties is all we had here for the kite. And then we had trapezoid and isosceles trapezoid. So that's here on page 98. So exactly one pair of opposite sides congruent. That's actually the isosceles trapezoid. Okay. A trapezoid doesn't have to have any. A trapezoid doesn't have to have any sides congruent. So all of these are parallelogram. Both pairs of consecutive sides are congruent. Nope, that was just the kite. Exactly one pair of opposite sides parallel. That is a trapezoid and isosceles trapezoid. Okay. And then we can kind of go down here. Both pairs of base angles are congruent. That only works with the isosceles trapezoid. Okay, not necessarily a trapezoid. And we can kind of skip some of these that are the square parallelogram because a trapezoid is a totally different shape. So exactly 2 consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, that is both the trapezoid and the isosceles trapezoid. Okay, and that is all of our properties here on one sheet. So looking at it here, we've got all of these properties. And we're going to actually tape this in here on page 100 or 101. It doesn't really matter which page it's on. Okay, and then on page 1, on the other page, we're going to do kind of the quadrilateral hierarchy. It's kind of like more of a puzzle. Like the 21 question game that people play all the time. And this is how you can determine what kind of shape. So if I'm thinking of a shape, I could have this in front of me and you could ask me questions about it. And this is the shortest way that you would need to take to determine what shape you have. So we're going to title it, What Quad is it? Okay. So we're going to use a flow chart here to go through this. So the first question, and everybody could have a different one. This is just the one that I came up with. And as you did it in class, you will probably have something different, but maybe some similar questions. The first question I ask is, are the diagonals congruent? Okay, and from that, you can either answer no, or you could answer yes. If you answer yes here, okay, then my next question is, are all sides congruent? If you answer no to the diagonals be congruent, I'm going to ask you if you have 2 pairs of parallel sides. So are 2 pairs of sides parallel? Okay, so then from those questions, you could answer yes or no. So no or yes. You could answer no or yes. Okay, so if you answer yes to this one, you have a square. If you answer no to the sides being congruent, I got another question, and that is, do diagonals bisect? Over here, if you answer yes, okay, yes, I have a question as to, are all sides congruent? And then if you answered no here to the 2 pairs of parallel sides, I'm going to ask if 1 pair of parallel sides are 1 pair of sides parallel. Okay. Again, you can answer yes or no to all of these. So we're going to kind of running out of a room just a little bit. So we're going to kind of squeeze this in. So you could have yes or no. You could have yes or no. You could have yes or no. Okay, so those were the last questions. So we can actually get all of them from these. So if you answered to the one pair of parallel sides, if you answered no, you have a kite. If you answered yes, that is a trapezoid. Okay. To the all sides congruent, if you said no, you have a parallelogram. And if you answered yes, you have a rhombus. Okay, diagonals bisect each other. If you said no, you have an isosceles trapezoid. And if you said yes, you have a rectangle. Okay, so you can use this to kind of figure out which shape that we're dealing with. Or if I give you a list of properties, you can kind of work your way through this. Okay, so we'll look at some of these and try to figure out what shapes that we have. The next things we're going to deal with in the next lessons are area and perimeter of these shapes. And we also have to look at these shapes in a coordinate plane to figure out which ones we have. And then we're also going to look at other types of polygons. These are just quadrilaterals, but we're going to look at some other regular polygons like 6, 7, 8-sided polygons and some other area and perimeter. All right, if you got any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching.